So what's up, YouTubers? Let's try to spend this afternoon in a more productive manner by resuming reading and reviewing a book about cold calls. And in the meantime, while I make cold calls, and in the meantime, while I read and review this book. So last time I stopped at chapter 2. So let's resume without further ado. So chapter 2, nobody does it better. Compared to other sales strategies, telemarketing offers significant advantages, including surprise, personal contact, immediate feedback, flexibility, and cost effectiveness. Certainly, if you call using WhatsApp's voice call, it certainly costs you nothing but time and effort, and some patience, and some guts / some courage. Element of surprise, whisper in their ear. Telemarketing interjects an element of surprise that person-to-person sales calls do not. When you show up for an appointment, the buyer is expecting you. He has reserved time and energy for you. He is already thinking about you, your company, and your product before you sit down. A cold call from a telemarketer is totally different. The buyer is not expecting you and hasn't reserved any time for you. He is simply going about his business, putting out fires, trying to please the boss, juggling responsibilities at home, and thinking about where he's going to eat lunch. Emails are popping up on his screen. His to-do list still isn't getting done. He's deciding which calls to return. So just before I read, proceeded to film this video, I cold called an Aussie lady 3 times, and the first time she just hung up, and the second time she picked up the phone and said, well, I don't want to talk to you. And shortly after, I tried to introduce myself and the business entity I work for. And then the third time, I rang her again, and she again said she doesn't want to talk to me. But I can hear the background noise that she might be in the middle of, she wasn't likely in the middle of something important, since I heard, since judging by the background noise, she was, I'm pretty sure she was watching the telly. Yeah, so probably I interrupted her good time, or her special alone time. And that's why, that's probably why she sounded so cranky. Excuse me, yeah. So let's resume while we cold call another contact again. In the middle of this whirlwind, you call a strange person from a strange company with a strange product, looking for money. You are a gnat on the nose of the elephant, a speck in the eye of the tiger. You are uninvited, unexpected, and generally unwelcome. But thanks to the power of the telephone, you are there in the buyer's ear. Like the guy who yells fire in a crowded theater, you are heard above the cacophony, at least for an instant. Depending on what you say and how you say it, you'll be heralded as a hero. or just another bum who gets tossed out in the street. Once you get the decision maker's attention, you never know what he will say. You might get exceedingly lucky and be greeted with an enthusiastic yes on the other end of the line, or exceeding unlucky and get chewed out for calling. You might encounter an objection or just vague puzzlement. You might be asked a question or hear a long silence. Well, speaking of long silence, yes, I do experience, moments of silence, from the other end of the phone, from the other end of the line, once or twice. And I'm not sure if if the hearer just left the cold call sessions switched on by accident, or something that went beyond my imagination occurred on the other side, on the other end of the line. Well, who knows? Yeah, probably. Yes, God knows, but I don't know, and I certainly don't have that much of time to find out all the answers to those whys. Yeah. Regardless, you must instantly deliver the right words in the right tone at the right moment. Parry and thrust. You are a fencer facing an unpredictable opponent. So personal contact, make a connection. Despite the mass coverage of direct mail, internet, radio, TV, newspaper, and magazine marketing, none of these establish personal contact with the buyer. Supposedly in this electronic age, human contact is becoming unnecessary, which would be true if we were all robots. In reality, we are flesh and blood, emotional creatures who must have personal contact with other human beings in order to survive. Sure, millions of purchases are made on the internet every day without a human salesperson. But what happens when the product breaks? When the customer can't understand how to use it? Then the person who was perfectly happy to buy from a machine wants to talk with a human being. Dell Computer, for example, found that its online sales suffered when its customer service failed to match the quality of its merchandise. So, while I read, let's launch another cold call. Let's see whom else I haven't called yet. Okay, event planning. Let's do this. The larger and more complex the product or service, the more essential the need for a human being to sell it. Telemarketing meets that need, establishing a trusting emotional frame of reference with the buyer upon which both initial sales and long-term customer relationships can evolve. Immediate feedback, test the water. Often, companies market products in a vacuum. Inventors invent. Strategic planners plan. Focus groups focus. But in most cases, no one is certain how consumers will respond to a new product or service. Telemarketing enables sellers to gain immediate feedback from potential customers. Sale objections can be identified. Missing features can be determined. Competitive advantages and disadvantages can be uncovered. Market research and product promotion can be accomplished in one call. Flexibility. Compete with the big boys. Because a human being is delivering the sales message, telemarketing can customize the message to fit the exact needs and concerns of each buyer. Unlike other forms of marketing, which present a static message to all. Furthermore, telemarketing can originate from any location and reach any location with equal speed. Prospects who are too far away to be visited can be called. When establishing retail locations is impractical, an office with a telephone can deliver the same message at a fraction of the cost. The phone is a great equalizer. Smaller companies can compete with mega corporations. Local enterprises can reach national audiences. Definitely. Most definitely, yeah. And for this chapter, then we have cost effectiveness, improved return on investment. Every advertising method contends that it is the most cost-effective approach, measured by whatever criteria most benefit that medium. Let's launch another cold call while we in fact, I have cold called this lead for pretty much a multitude of times, and all I heard was rejection, refusal to communicate via WhatsApp voice call. So let's hear if such person changes her mind this time. Cost effectiveness, improve return on investment. Every advertising method contends that it is the most cost-effective approach, measured by whatever criteria most benefits that medium. In my mind, the only valid criterion for measuring cost effectiveness is how many dollars it takes to generate a sale. Unlike some media, for example, newspapers and magazines that brag about vague benefits such as name recognition, the value of telemarketing can be measured objectively. Simply divide the revenue gained by the cost expanded to calculate your return on investment, aka AOI. Admittedly, the calculation becomes more complicated when telemarketing is only part of the sale process, or when the sales cycle extends well beyond the time when the call was actually made. So I need to chew. I found myself kind of needy, to chew on this particular paragraph. Unlike some media, newspapers, magazines that brag about big benefits such as name recognition. I have never seen the word here, name recognition, before. So I'm not sure why the author here mentions such term or such specific terminology. So I have to keep learning, keep exploring, keep trying. So what time is it now in London? It's 8:16 a.m. So I'm not sure if I should start cold calling there. Few espresso via Facebook, what's that? Okay, let's try it. So simply the value of telemarketing can be measured objectively. Simply divide the revenue gained by the cost expanded to calculate your return on investment, aka ROI. Admittedly, the calculation becomes more complicated when telemarketing is only part of the sales process, or when the sales cycle extends well beyond the time when the calls were actually made. In my experience, telemarketing is the most cost-effective way to reach and motivate targeted prospects. Mass media works best for mass audiences, but when success depends on reaching a relatively small group of isolated decision makers, nothing beats a professional caller who can wade through the maze of advertising cacophony and reach buyers the old-fashioned way, one at a time. Yeah. Can't agree more on that. Oops. So let's read this again. In my experience, telemarketing is the most cost-effective way to reach and motivate targeted prospects. Mass media works best for mass audiences. But when success depends on reaching a relatively small group of isolated decision makers, nothing beats a professional caller who can weave through the maze of advertising cacophony and reach buyers the old-fashioned way, one at a time. Yeah, so long as you can, at least you can close several deals, even after a dozen or even a few dozens of cold call attempts / sessions, you can still call it a day, despite despite the failures, despite the failed attempts. So even those failed attempts of cold calls can still pay off. That says we can still stand to reap the benefits of cold calling, even if most of our cold call attempts failed to lead to any closed deals. We can still gain the experience and the accumulated massive amount of confidence, because I suppose so far as I can perceive, confidence abounds over time. Whilst we try, whilst we attempt to overcome our limitations, our own limits of fear and courage. I used to fear, I used to fear to make phone calls in the general sense to my acquaintances, to my friends, not to mention cold calls. I used to fear hot calls that much. While I was still a student back at the University of Sydney, I feared I was so afraid of me stuttering while I spoke to someone through a phone. I tended to get so embarrassed, thinking to myself like an utter piece of shit and utter weirdo. I brought so much amount of shame and lack of confidence to myself, and it is certainly a vicious cycle. The more you stutter, the more afraid the more afraid you become of the more afraid you become of stuttering. The more inclined you tend to get, towards stuttering. So we have finished reading and reviewing chapter 2. Let's proceed to chapter 3. There are a couple of words that I need to look up, because there are some words that I don't know yet how to pronounce. Okay, let's see what we have. And yes, in the meantime, I still have to edit. Edit a Patreon exclusive video. That was filmed, two days ago.
Nuisance.
So chapter 3 we have your mission should you choose to accept it. For many, the term telemarketing invokes a visual image of fast-talking, calm artists in smoke-filled rooms selling swampland to sweet old ladies, or dizzy-headed high school dropouts reading phone scripts while you are trying to eat dinner. To combat the stereotype, business-to-business (B2B) practitioners now call themselves telesales or inside sales reps. Of course, a pig is still a pig no matter how sweet he smells. The issue is not what you are called, but what you do with that powerful tool called the telephone. I used the term telemarketing to refer to any sales activity conducted over the phone. Okay, let's engage another cold call. So cold calling mode engaged. Let's pick someone who seems most likely to answer the phone. Okay, we have awesome physique personal training. Not sure, but I also saw this dude on Facebook selling handmade honey or honeycomb some time ago. Let's see what we have here. Probably this guy has the need of managing, has the need of hiring someone, I mean a real human being, another human individual to share his workload. Who knows? Let's find out. So evolution, do what technology cannot. Changes in the marketplace have dramatically altered the role of B2B telemarketing. Long distance rates. The charge for non-local calls on a landline has fallen from 20 cents per minute to 0. Well, I never heard of that. Maybe, since this book was published in the States, maybe it may not apply to Great Britain or to Australia, so I'm not sure. I still need some more time to find out. So paying a small flat fee per month, companies can now make unlimited long-distance calls for free and afford to market their goods to anyone anywhere. Online purchases. According to the Direct Marketing Association, online purchases are skyrocketing while purchases initiated by outbound calls are sinking to new lows. The company that used to buy its coffee supplies from a high school grad calling for a local vendor, for example, now orders everything online from a mega store website. As a result of the proliferation of online commerce, human beings are less necessary in selling commodity goods. Yep, such as through automated kiosks, online order forms, aka web pages, some other e-commerce platforms like Shopify, but I haven't used Shopify myself yet, so I can't comment and speculate too much about the inside 911 intel about Shopify yet, since it has quite a high entry barrier against those who are quite flat broke like me. Though I do in my as I mentioned in my previous video, I do currently have a few $1,000 in my account. That's just I guess I still owe that much to my grandma's prolonged period of love and care. Since my grandma paid all the costs of utilities, at her residence, on her own, and she on the other hand, on top of that, she also, makes purchases of those medications that treat or slash alleviate my medical conditions, those symptoms of intense intrusive thoughts, etc. So I guess I owe her that much, and I can't, I don't have, currently I have no, I have earned no credit nor position, to call myself, to ever claim to be someone who is currently, financially speaking, self-sufficient or self-sustaining, since while I still pay for my own food, most of the times, but that's pretty much all about it. So let's resume. Let's just let me cold call another guy here. Found another guy. Let's try. Technology. Today's business products are becoming increasingly more technical and computer-driven. Nothing is simple anymore. New technological gizmos require one-on-one demonstrations, and even mundane equipment is really self-explanatory. Consequently, more personal attention must be given to consumers. Do not call. While the federal law prohibiting unsolicited sales calls does not regulate B2B calls, except in a few rare exceptions. It affects all telephone commerce. Telephone marketers must be more sensitive to those they call, lest they be labeled as public nuisances and reported to consumer agencies. Yes, I do. I also have, an occasion or two. I got scolded. I got, threatened, by the person who answers my cold calls. I believe that some of those nuisances caused our company's Facebook page to get bombarded by several negative reviews, and even at this moment, as we speak, one negative review still remains there, and the company's Facebook page now has an overall 1/5 rating, which probably I don't know if I ruined our company's business image. I don't know if I cold called too unsolicitedly, or just I just made too many arbitrary cold calls to those to those who stand utterly no possibility whatsoever purchasing any goods or services from the company. So yes, as a result, I must reflect on that. If not repent of so doing. Yeah. So let's resume. In summary, the cost of B2B telemarketing has gone down, but the role of the caller has become more complex, requiring greater finesse and skill than ever before. Today's successful telemarketer must do what technology cannot do: establish personal connections, explain complex products, and engage the buyer in a consultative sales process. This chapter is quite long. Oh my god, I never anticipated that. What else do we have? So special roles, find your niche. Research outbound calling can be effective in conducting market research. For example, one of my clients have developed technology that could personalize the colors and images of a website to fit each specific visitor. The developers were unsure who might buy the technology, but thought it might be helpful to those who create websites. My job was to call several hundred webmasters, give them a conceptual overview of the technology, and ask whether they thought it might be helpful. They weren't interested, and the client directed its marketing attention elsewhere. Telephone research can also be helpful in identifying contact information. Another one of my clients planned to mail a $500 marketing kit to the product managers of selected prescription drugs. My job was to contact the pharmaceutical companies who produce these drugs and determine the name and address of each manager, considering that drug manufacturers are exceedingly hush-hush about their employees. Yes, most frequently. Not sure if for those of you guys who are currently residing, in Great Britain and working as a full-time employee of some large corporations. I don't know if you guys have signed something like a non-disclosure agreement, something like that. Well, not actually. I don't even know, what such thing, is called back in Australia. Since I have never got myself an offer of full-time employment back in Australia. I was, technically speaking, I have never been, technically speaking, a full-time an employee of any business entity of, prestigious background or reputation, on a full-time basis. I simply got myself on several casual and part-time and even contractor's job there. So I don't know how you Brits called a non-disclosure agreement or something like that. It's something that you must you likely have to sign before you get legally and officially employed by an employer, such as a multinational corporation or some local, some highly British, highly local business entities, such as Woolworth and Kmart or Target, something like that. I am not sure, but in any regard, let's try and finish up this chapter, shall we? It's quite hard. Considering that drug manufacturers are exceedingly hush-hush about their employees, I couldn't get an employee directory commercially or online. Instead, I started with the receptionist and progressed from employee to employee, asking questions for 5 weeks until I had identified the right people. Don't pretend to be conducting research when you are really trying to sell. Well, I did that for quite a number of times. Yes, I lied about my role, my key roles, key responsibilities, within the organization, by claiming that I did, I represented a research, a marketing research company, blah blah blah. So the author here, he pointed out, such highly deceptive, highly dodgy, dodgy practice, probably that are being, most commonly adopted by multitudes of telemarketers throughout the whole world. So don't pretend to be conducting research when you are really trying to sell. On several occasions, I have been asked to survey decision makers about their equipment, processes, problems, and plans. Under the guise of asking objective questions, this technique is really designed to identify what prospects will buy and how much they will pay for it. Some people call this consultative selling. I call it self-defeating manipulation. Truly it is. For starters, the decision maker knows what you are trying to do from the outset and resents being treated like a non-brain pawn. In addition, no responsible business leader is going to spill his guts about corporate secrets to a stranger on the phone. However, I have found that some decision makers are surprisingly willing to answer. Polite, non-intrusive calls about the business processes and needs. The key is to start with simple, non-threatening questions and move to more in-depth inquiries as the client allows. For example, if you are selling delivery services to companies that currently have their own delivery trucks and crews, you might start by saying, the rising cost of gas has affected everybody. Has this been a problem for you? With a little luck, the VIP will not only answer yes, but also offer more detailed information, such as we've had to cut back on our delivery areas to cut costs. That's your opening to discuss the advantages of outsourcing deliveries to your company. Yeah, I have never thought of that. Yeah, let's dive in further. So, event promotion. When a company invites prospects, customers to a special event, such as a meeting, webinar, or conference call, a telemarketer may call the invitees to remind them about the event and determine how many people will be attending. Not sure if I pronounced this word right, so just need to check the dictionary again. How stupid I am. Excuse me. Invitee. not invitee. So event promotion, when a company invites prospects, customers to a special event, such as a meeting, webinar, or conference call, a telemarketer may call the invitees to remind them about the event and determine how many people will be attending. Based on my personal experience, most of the invitees won't remember ever receiving the initial invitation. Therefore, the follow-up call requires both an overview of the event and a second, more personal invitation. In my experience, follow-up calls can significantly increase attendance at a marketing event. So probably we can use such information as ice breaking or ice drilling point, to break the silence. So lead qualification, to use not only to break the silence as icebreaker to break the silence, but also you use that to smash our fears of getting scorned at, getting laughed at, or just as an antidote, against the feeling of awkwardness and blah blah blah, embarrassment. Lead qualification. Prospects who visit a company's website or respond to other forms of marketing need follow-up calls. A telemarketer can answer any questions they may have, broaden their understanding of the product, and enable them to establish a connection with a live human being. The process also allows the company to further qualify each prospect based on interest, budget, decision-making authority, or other criteria. In larger organizations, where sales and marketing exist as separate entities, telemarketing can serve as an essential link between the two functions. In a typical situation, the marketing department identifies prospects who have come to the company's website looking for product information and forward these leads to the sales department. Inevitably, problems arise in this process. Marketing may refer leads to sales that are not adequately qualified, that is, unlikely to actually buy, and sales reps may ignore referrals believing they are unqualified, which may or may not be true. As long as the company is making money, these problems are relatively invisible. But when revenue falls short of expectation, that's when the finger pointing starts. In this scenario, everyone loses, the company and potential customers. Telemarketing can serve as a powerful bridge between all the parties, separating hot leads from tire kickers and enabling time-strapped outside reps to focus their attention on those most likely to buy. Lead generation. Most of my telemarketing has been cold calling, that is, contacting new prospects who have not previously shown interest in a product or service. Generating leads by cold calling is the focus of this book. As explained in later chapters, the process involves 5 basic steps, which are organization, setting goals and timetables, determining your target market, identifying decision makers, compiling a comprehensive and clean prospect database, learning all the basics about your product, and preparing scripts and collateral materials. Access, obtaining direct phone numbers and maneuvering past gatekeepers. Delivery, introducing yourself and your product to the decision maker, asking and answering questions, overcoming objections, and closing. So speaking of gatekeepers, just in case if you happen to be cold calling lots of contacts or leads, through their mobile numbers, then I suppose their so-called the so-called gatekeepers problem just doesn't tend to exist as often as those leads with landline or fixed line numbers. But I can't be 100% sure, since whenever you cold call, someone who are actually married or in a long-term civil relationship or civil union, probably the spouse might the spouse of such lead might pick up the phone and answers the call instead. So you have to get past the one, at least one gatekeeper, if not a couple of gatekeepers, in a single attempt, or maybe in a series of cold calling attempts. Yeah. So yeah, it still takes years of practice and hard work, to get a firm grasp at. Yeah. I don't certainly deny such fact. Yeah. So later we have access, obtaining direct phone numbers and maneuvering past gatekeepers. Delivery, introducing yourself and your product to the decision maker, asking and answering questions, overcoming objections, and closing. Record keeping, maintaining accurate and current records of contact activities. Follow up, maintaining ongoing contacts with prospects in order to generate sufficient interest in your product. Lead generation is a carefully orchestrated process that requires preparation, precision, and persistence. Every step must be executed with skill and professional passion in order to be successful. So I almost forgot how I should answer another cold call here. Just need to connect to the VPN and then cold call. Just give me a sec. Lead generation is a carefully orchestrated process that requires preparation, precision, and persistence. Every step must be executed with skill and professional passion in order to be successful. An old friend once told me, even a blind hog will find an acorn sometimes. Incompetent telemarketers will inevitably stumble upon interested prospects. Unfortunately, they will also trample lots of other good leads as they root around. So what is an acorn? Acorn. Hold declined. Okay. Acorn. I see. It's a kind of fruit. So an old friend once told me, even a blind hog will find an acorn sometimes. Incompetent telemarketers will inevitably stumble upon interested prospects. Unfortunately, they will also trample lots of other good leads as they root around. As a professional telemarketer, I know that a few prospects will be immediately interested in my pitch, and that a sizable percentage will never be interested, like politicians on election day. My goal is to convert the undecided into believers. These are the ones who need my solution but don't know it yet. These are the ones who are open to a better idea if someone will turn on the light for them. These are the ones who typically reject the average telemarketer, not for the inferiority of his product, but for the inadequacy of his delivery. When these folks hear an irritating voice or an insincere sounding pitch, they stop listening before the inferior caller has delivered the punchline. When they hear my voice, they are also more likely to interrupt the chaos of their world and consider my message. Oh my god, this chapter is so long. Direct selling. While the role of direct B2B sales by phone is shrinking, opportunities still exist, particularly in promoting items that require customization or a one-on-one personal explanation, such as moderately priced software, printing, and advertising. Direct telephone selling is also particularly effective for selling upgrades and new features to existing customers, even when the unit price may be substantial. Okay, let's proceed to another cold call while we read and review this book. So what else we have? What else leads we have? Gold Coast urban landscapes. Not sure about this. Let's call for best results. Sell complex, higher-priced, value-driven products. Telemarketing can be used to promote virtually any product or service. But in my experience, you can expect the best results when the product is complex and has a higher price. When the selling advantage is more value-driven than price-driven, and when access to the decision maker is severely limited. Complex products, impersonal marketing, such as direct mail, the internet, etc., is efficient when the product or service is already well understood by consumers. But when you are selling a new product, or that one is so complex as to require a detailed explanation, such as software or insurance, telemarketing makes sense. Yes, so well, I have never sold software or insurance, things or products or services like that here. So probably next time, or times after next times, I'll try if I could sell software or insurance. But before so doing, I suppose I must obtain the legally appropriate license or licenses, before I can, before I can ever commit to such sales practice or such subcategories of cold call sales. Yeah. But never mind. Let's proceed. Try to finish up. Try to wrap up this chapter. So higher priced. Generally, the more expensive the item, the more necessary is human interaction with the consumer. For example, very few people buy houses or expensive manufacturing equipment sights unseen. Telemarketing provides that human touch when face-to-face interaction is not possible or economically feasible. Therefore, telemarketing is often used to establish an initial personal relationship with the buyer, followed by a face-to-face appointment by a sales rep. Value-driven telemarketing is more effective in promoting value-driven sales propositions than promoting price-driven ones. If the only difference between your product and the competitors is price, traditional advertising is a more efficient way to promote your lower price. But when you are if the only difference between your product and the competitors is price, traditional advertising is a more efficient way to promote your lower price. But when you are selling more subjective advantages, such as increased efficiency, time savings, or superior service after the sale, you need someone to discuss the less tangible issues with the consumer. Yeah, so I suppose the author here meant to say by these less tangible issues, he meant to deliver several more messages or instructions about certain products or services that might that might actually necessitate a certain duration of active use before you can ever discover the issue, such as the smoothness of a laptop's touchpad. Yes, since I used to sell second-handed ThinkPads back in the days while I was still in Australia. I know that some customers they actually prefer to use those more so-called more classic ThinkPads, since such as a ThinkPad T410, ThinkPad T402, even ThinkPad T430. Sometimes even it can even date back to as early as ancient as ThinkPad T60 T60p. Well, since T60, those ever more classic ThinkPads, they have a screen with a 4:3 ratio, rather than nowadays wide screens. The nowadays far more prevalent wide screens, that pretty much all laptops are equipped with. Yes, so that probably I reckon the author here meant to say that some those less tangible issues or downsides of certain products or services, they take they most typically speaking, or generally speaking, they take more time for the customer, and for the end users to realize, the existence of, the occurrence of those issues, since it takes them a certain, not a certain, but sometime, at least sometime, let's say maybe a month or maybe even a year, for them to realize that, wow, hey, there's a far more superior product than the product I'm currently using, such as a classic ThinkPad with a smoother touch of a touchpad, and a more classic keyboard, that gives most end users a far more superior, fast, much smoother typing experience, than the latest ThinkPads do, such as a ThinkPad 400 T440p and the later models, they tend to have a large touchpad that actually effectively practically removed those three keys on the classic touchpad of a classic ThinkPad. I'm not sure. Well, for those who are not so familiar with ThinkPads, I might have to include several images or several copyright free or creative, or those video footages with Creative Commons license, so that in order to give you guys a clearer picture, to facilitate you guys understanding of what I'm trying to say here. Yeah. Well, but in any regard, let's wrap this chapter up. Yeah. So, but when you are selling more subjective advantages, such as increased efficiency, time savings, or superior service after the sale, You need someone to discuss these less tangible issues with the consumer. Limited access to decision maker. Sometimes the only way to get your sales message to business decision makers is to call them on the phone. When they don't read your direct mail pieces, answer your emails, visit your website, or respond to your other advances, your best shot is telemarketing. Definitely. Okay, guys, I suppose I just need to check up my grandma because I can hear her moaning and groaning about some issues there. So yes, well, thank you very much for those who have watched this far, and I hope to see you guys next time in my next videos on YouTube if God's still willing. So yeah, I have to end this filming session for now, and I will see what I can do to polish, to optimize your overall watching experience of this particular video by adding some images of ThinkPad or its classic touch pens and keyboard layout, blah blah blah, and etc. Well, I beg your pardon for my stuttering. Anyway, well, I hope to see you guys next time if God the Almighty is still winning. So take care, stay safe, stay tuned, have faith, remain steadfast, and stay put. Until next time, cheers and au revoir. Bye bye.